Talking about something which is some bit of, is it basic Buddhism or is it just common sense? And sometimes people ask, is Buddhism a religion anyway? And my answer to most people, I've done this on radio and TV in Australia, Buddhism is a religion for tax purposes anyway. Sorry? It's okay, no, I can multitask. Open it, can I? No, see, you should never multitask. So anyway, so it doesn't matter, we just started, so just done the introductions. I'm Ajahn Brahm, in case you have any doubt. So, talking about a path to happiness, like a cause and effect. There's not enough happy people in this world today. And you can see that just walking down the street, how many people are smiling at one another, how many people smile at the bank, how many people in the subway and public transport. So why is it the case? People think maybe, oh, it's because the state of the world. Sometimes they think it's because of Donald Trump. It's an amazing thing that Donald Trump is here. I always see the nice thing about anything, because Donald Trump gives you the opportunity for jokes. So I already mentioned one Donald Trump joke earlier. My second Donald Trump joke is, you all know that he went to see the Pope recently, and he complained to the Pope. He always gets bad press from the New York Times and the Washington Post. So, can he help? So the Pope, being a very kind, compassionate person, said, well, maybe I'll just see what I can do. And a couple of days later, the Pope rang the White House and said, I've been talking to my boss, and and he's decided to help you. So tomorrow, he said, go out in front of the White House, and you see this reflection pond, you know, just in front of the Lincoln Memorial. He said, you go onto that pond and you'll find you can walk on water. That should impress people, especially United States. So the following day, he gave it a try. There's people out there protesting about something, and he walked on that lake and he walked on water. Everybody saw that. And the following day in the New York Times, Washington Post, the same headline. Donald Trump, more incompetent than we thought, can't even swim. What's the meaning of that? Problem is, if people want to see your faults and weaknesses, they will. But anyway, what's that got to do with this Eightfold path? It all starts to the way we look at the world. Sometimes if you look this up in the books, the view, the way we see things. And I was just talking with, it's Dennis, yeah, a few moments ago, about an experiment which was done recently in Imperial College in London. And where this actually comes from, part of my background, again, is in theoretical physics. I would have certainly met Stephen Hawking before he was famous. A good lecturer, one of my lecturers was his teacher, Professor Sharma, and also just the first Buddhist I ever met once I decided to become a Buddhist. An interesting story was, when I decided that, just through doing market research, I like Buddhism. You're allowed to laugh, you can question, the dogma isn't really there, you can actually see what you want to see, and argue and question, which is a wonderful thing. And then I always thought I was the only Buddhist in the whole world. I didn't know where to find another one. And when I went to this university, there was this fair for different societies and clubs. And everything from fox hunting. I could join the fox hunting society. But one of the ones I saw there was a Buddhist Society of Cambridge. And I was so excited. There was other Buddhists. And I went to the stall there and I said, I want to join The student on the other side of the table said, "You don't have to. Just come and find out for yourself." I said, "I want to join. I'm a Buddhist." He said, No, you don't have to commit. Come for a few weeks. It's all for free. And then if you like it, then you can... I want to join. And I actually slammed down a £1 note and said, "Join me." And that man, on this wonderful occasion, became one of my best friends, lifelong colleagues, Professor Bernard Carr, featured in the movie The Theory of Everything, one of Stephen Hawking's closest of students. And he is also a Buddhist, and also an experimenter in weird stuff, like ghosts, quantum theory, the astrophysics of the galaxy, and also mindfulness. So, he told me of this experiment which was done in Imperial College. There was a lecturer, well, not a lecturer, he's a famous, reasonably famous scientist, who said he claimed to be able to demonstrate in laboratory conditions levitation. And he had enough cred to be able to invite many well-known senior physicists, trained observers, people who had done so many experiments and were well known for great breakthroughs, to come to this lecture theatre to witness levitation. So that was his first achievement, to get so many well-known professors and experimenters to attend. And he came in himself, this experimenter, with a flower pot and put it on the laboratory table and said, "Look, there's no wires or anything. I am now going to levitate this flower pot. But," said this physicist, "I need your assistance. I want you all, remaining in your seats, to chant Om and create some atmosphere." And that was his second great achievement, to get all these famous English professors to go Om, Om, Om. And as they were chanting the holy Indian word Om, the flower pot rose into the air. It levitated. They recorded it on camera, on video, in front of an audience of trained skeptics, scientists, trained observers. It rose into the air. And afterwards, when they asked them what they saw, a couple of them said, "What are you talking about? The flower pot never lifted off the table. It was on the table all the time." And that was the purpose of the experiment. In truth, underneath that table was a huge, powerful electromagnet. And when he turned it on, you all know, you may not be scientists, when a very powerful current goes through any instrument, you can hear the hum. The Om was to mask what was really going on, so they couldn't hear the humming of the high amperage current. But the real reason of that experiment was just perception and view. How it is, even trained observers will not see what totally goes against what they believe is possible. What they think can't happen, they won't see. Which is one of the reasons why we start that Eightfold Path with a view which suspends what we expect to see, suspends even just what we think is possible, suspends all of that to have what is really an open mind, to be willing, as I say, I don't know, does anyone ever watch Star Trek, still watch Star Trek? One of my sayings is to boldly go where no monk has gone before. So, this is where part of the Eightfold Path is to have the courage, have the strength, the adventure to actually to find out what's really going on, and to learn how to train yourself to have a clear mind, which is not masked by what you want to see or how you want to view things. And of course you all know in your life just the trouble that gets you when you just see what you want to see. Monks are not romantic. So this is one of the reasons why I've noticed young men and young women, they fall in love. Where? Where do you go out for a romantic time? You go out for a walk by the river in the moonlight. You have a candlelit dinner. You go to a nightclub. What have those three places got in common? Low light, dark, so you can't really see what you're falling in love with. So your imagination has free rein to imagine that ordinary looking woman to be like some really hot supermodel, and that guy in front of you to look like Bruce Willis in a brown robe. No luck? No, too many lights. But it is true. That is where what you want to see is what you do see. And it does happen in our modern world, unfortunately. 5-10 years later, you're not at the nightclub, you're at the lawyer's office filing for divorce. And now you can't say anything good in your ex. Why is that? Because when you have negativity, you can't see anything good in them. It was there at the beginning anyway, but now you can't see it. So it's best whenever you fall in love to be realistic and have a good view of what you're getting yourself into. Which is one of the pieces of advice one of my friends from Singapore told me when she got married. Her father took aside his new son-in-law. A father-son-in-law chat. And he told this lady's husband, new husband, "You probably think my daughter is absolutely perfect." And he started gushing, "Oh yes, I'm so lucky to have met him and to fall in love with him, and he's fallen in love with me. I'm so lucky to have found this wonderful woman in my life. She's so perfect, she's so wonderful. Even the way she picks her nose is so charming." And the father said, "Yes, that's what it's like when you fall in love. Everything about your partner is absolutely perfect." But he said, "A warning to you. In 1 or 2 years, you will start to notice some faults and defects in my daughter. You'll find out she's not that perfect. But," said the father, "when you start to see my daughter's faults, I want you to remember this, keep this in mind. If she never had those defects to begin with, she'd have married someone much better than you." You've got defects as well. So it's being realistic, which is the amazing thing about right view, is get away the fantasies. If you get it real to begin with, your relationship can actually work. Fantasies, expecting something out of your partner which he or she can never give you, is impossible, is one of the great causes of disappointment, frustration and anger. asking from life what it can't give us. It's wrong view. It's when you demand from life what it can't give you, of course, you get frustrated and angry. Too many people, they expect too much. They expect from life what it can't give us. They don't see it correctly, and that causes a lot of trouble. So how can we get from this stupid view into something much better view? So there we start with some basic ethics. If you want a good life, if you want a good time, then be good. I often tell people, I am a good time monk. I'm having a good time. I enjoy my life. And how can you enjoy a life, Ajahn Brahm? You can't go watch movies, you can't have sex, you can't get married, you can't have kids, you can't do this, you can't do this. You know why they call female monks nuns? None of this, none of that. You know why they call beginning monks, well, know why they call them novices? No vice. They're no vice monks. But anyhow, just why not have ethics? I was an ordinary student. I just wanted to have a good time. And when people said, why don't you say give up alcohol and drugs? I said, well, not alcohol, come on. Everyone takes a beer in Canada. Why not? Until somebody started telling me these interesting stories. There was a guy in Sydney. He went to an office party. After he had a few beers. And same in all modern countries now, if you drive under the influence of drink, you get fined. You know, sometimes even lose your license. But there's not that many police around. So he thought, chances are, the probabilities are he won't get caught. So as he was driving home, thinking he'd be safe, he suddenly found his karma had run out. He had bad luck because he was caught in a road traffic block where the police were testing every driver on this passage of road for their alcohol level. Do they do that in Canada as well? The random road testing of alcohol? So once you're in... Sorry? Not in Halifax? Really? Okay, anyway, they were stopping them anyway over there. Everyone had to get out of their car and blow in this breathalyzer tube. So anyway, he knew he was over the limit. He knew he was in big trouble. He thought, that's it. He's going to have a big fine, probably lose his license. But as he got out of the car to blow into the tube, there was a sound of a crash. Because all the cars were being stopped, one car who was going a tiny bit too fast went into the rear end of the car in front. And because of that, the police officer took the tube away and said, it's more important that I deal with this traffic incident than check your alcohol. Go home. And he thought he was so lucky. He literally became within a second of getting busted for being over the limit while driving. And the following morning, he woke up with a hangover because somebody was ringing his doorbell and would not stop. So in his pajamas, he staggered to the door, and there was 2 Sydney policemen outside. Now, whenever you see a policeman at your door, you think of all the things you may have done wrong. So he was very scared, but then he thought, no, I'm not driving now, even though I still got alcohol in my blood. They can't do anything now. So he said, what do you want, officers? And the officer said, sir, would you mind if we look in your car? In your garage, sorry. If I look in your garage, said, yeah, there's nothing in my garage, just my car. Yeah, sure. So he took the 2 policemen to the garage. And when he opened the garage door, this man almost had a heart attack. Because in the garage, it wasn't his car in there was a police car in there. When they said, get in your car, sir, and drive home, he was so drunk He didn't know which car was his, and he drove one of theirs. And that actually happened. So that is the dangers of alcohol. So anyway, you don't need it anyway. Sometimes people think, I'm drunk. I'm drunk and having a good time. Because when you're trustworthy, when you're kind, just when you are literally a good person, you have much more peace and happiness in your life. You don't need alcohol or drugs to be happy. So I proved that with my life. So this is why a foundation of happiness is actually being a good person, trusting one another, being honest. Now, why is it that so many people lie to each other? Husbands and wives lie. Kids lie to their parents. Professors lie to the Vice Chancellor. Why do they do this? And there's a good reason for that. And the reason I discovered that was when this young girl came to see me. Her parents came to my temple, known them for a long time. And she said, Ajahn Brahm, I need your help. What's wrong? He said, I'm pregnant. She's only about 17 years of age. And they said, well, have you told your mum and dad yet? I said, no, that's the problem. They'll kill me if they found out I'm pregnant. He said, that's what I want you to do, Ajahn Brahm. Can you do that for me? That's your job. So that was a monk's job, to protect the daughter from the parents. So I did that. I said, look, mistakes happen, human beings, just we try and learn from our mistakes. But, said I realized afterwards, that told me why there's big problems in this world. Why is it when your children need you the most, when they're in big trouble, your son's in trouble with drugs, why is it they won't tell you? It's because they're scared of what you might do. They're terrified, so they hide it from you. Their daughters may hide the fact they're pregnant. They go and have an abortion. They never tell mum. Why? Because they're scared of punishment. It was that punishment which hides the truth, which is the cause of lying. So, just a bit of practical advice here on virtue, goodness. We have to make things like honesty so important. If your partner comes and tells you something, which is embarrassing for them, but they tell you that because they want to sort of get your help, please never punish them, never scold them, never just throw a tantrum. Otherwise, you're encouraging them to lie next time, not tell the truth. The same with your kids. Please tell your children that no matter what they've done, no matter what, they can always come and tell mum and dad. We won't scold you. We don't want you to be afraid of us. We're here to help you. Kids, your kids do make mistakes. Your partners do stupid things from time to time. But they need you. They need your support. They need someone to help them through this crisis in their lives. And lying is always because of fear of punishment. So, to be virtuous, we also need this wonderful kindness and compassion to put aside punishment and have forgiveness. There's a code which encourages ethics, which over in Australia, we have an Australian Football League. America have American Football League. Unfortunately, it doesn't work over here when you play hockey as your national sport. Is that still the case? Yeah. But anyway, I use the acronym AFL, acknowledge. Tell people what's happening. Forgive. These are people you love. You make mistakes. I make mistakes. We all make mistakes. And I love telling people about my mistakes. One of my best mistakes recently was when there was this Chinese Buddhist family over in Western Australia, and their father, grandfather got so sick in hospital, was in the ICU, in a coma, and they wanted a Buddhist monk to do some chanting for them, and that was me. So I went into the ICU, this poor old man, really sick, in a coma, ICU, so I did some chanting for him. And whatever I do in my life, I always give it everything I've got. I never sort of do things half-heartedly. Everything. Eating, sleeping, jokes, whatever. Really give everything you've got. So, I did some really powerful chanting for this gentleman, and it was like a miracle. He recovered. He didn't die. And that was when the shit hit the fan. If anybody complains about me using the shit word, I tell, and Venerable can tell me this is so true, in the Buddhist code of discipline and in the Arunika Sutta, this is one of the scriptures, the Buddha said clearly, monks, whenever you teach, you should teach in the local language. So if you want me to stop saying shit, then you have to stop it first. So, I was in big trouble. Why? The fellow's alive now. He said, but we've got the whole family have travelled from overseas, from Hong Kong, mainland China, Taiwan, for the death. We've already organised a funeral. And now they've all got to go back home again, and we've got to cancel the funeral at great expense until he dies properly next time. So we didn't expect him to recover. We made all the plans, and he'd come along and mess up all our plans. So I was very unhappy about me saving his life. But you acknowledge your mistakes, and I learn from them. So now, whenever I go into hospital to do some chanting, I always, what type of chanting do you want? Please remember this, Venerable. Is it get better chanting or die peaceful chanting? So now I never make the same mistake anymore. And that's a true story. So you acknowledge, you forgive, and you learn from it. If you don't even get to the forgiveness stage, you never learn anything from the mistakes and faults of life. So this is actually where we learn not to lie, but to acknowledge the mistakes we make in life. Is there anyone here who's never made a mistake in life? Of course you have. What were they? Put them online. Because there's something about our life, we're not allowed to make mistakes. When you made a mistake as a kid, that you are told off by your teacher. You felt diminished, something wrong with you, which means that you learn how to hide mistakes. Even in research, we tend to hide the anomalies. They don't fit in. And so this is one of the reasons why people have a lack of ethics, because we're afraid of punishments. We're afraid to admit that we're not perfect. And the right view, the wisdom of this, is to realize it's all right to make a mistake. You don't have to always be correct. If you're wrong, admit it. Why not? It doesn't make you a stupid person, it makes you a wise person. A stupid person is the one who makes a mistake and doesn't admit it. A wise one is, yeah, I fouled up. And you just let people know. That reduces a lot of your mental stress. It also gives you an opportunity to grow. And of course, the story which I keep telling again and again, which shows you this, the famous two bad bricks in the wall story. In my first book, the most common story people hear about Ajahn Brahm. I was a theoretical physicist. That's really up in my head. I went to Thailand and then over to Australia. When we first got some land for a monastery, we had no money at all. We were in debt. The bank owned the monastery, not us, and there was no place to stay. Our first night, I knew what it was like to be a kangaroo, sleeping under a tree. No pillow, no blanket, nothing. So we had to learn how to build. I had to learn how to build and lay bricks. And as I was laying my first brick wall, it looked so easy. I was a perfectionist, just like most people in this world. And so I made sure every brick was perfect before I went on to the next one. And when I finished my first brick wall, I stood back to admire it. My first wall, my own handiwork. I was so proud of the first wall until I saw the two crooked bricks. To this day, I don't know how that happened, how I missed those two. But they were there. And I tried to scrape out the cement mortar to try and reset them. It was like stone. So there was another monk with me at the time, and I asked him, can we afford some dynamite? I wanted to blow up that wall to start again. We couldn't afford it. So I was stuck with this mistaken, this terrible wall. Those two bad bricks spoiled it. And honestly, I would have nightmares about that wall, wake up in the middle of the night in a sweat. That was my wall. I stuffed up. I made big mistake, and I could not hide it. Everybody could see it. Even to the point that whenever any visitors came, I volunteered to be the guide, so I could take them a route they'd never see my terrible wall. And it was one day I was with a visitor, and I couldn't sort of escape them seeing the wall. They saw that wall, and they said, that's a nice wall, that's a beautiful wall. And my response was, are you blind? Are you left your glasses, your spectacles in the car? Are you visually, what's it called? Impaired, yes. And I said, what are you talking about? I said, can't you see those two bad bricks? And that's when they told me this amazing result of this story. Yes, I can see the two bad bricks, but I can also see the 998 good bricks as well. And I realized I was a blind guy, not them. And I don't know why it was. For 3 months, whenever I thought of that wall, whenever I remembered it, even whenever I looked at it, my eyes would go to those two mistakes, and I couldn't see anything else except the two bad bricks. I needed a friend to point me to the brick to the left, the right, above and below, the beautiful bricks. When I saw that, the guy was right. It was a good wall. But whenever I focused on the mistakes, the fault finding, that's what was driving me crazy. Sleepless nights. And that's the same with your two faults. The faults in your partner. Why is it your husband lets you down once, twice, and you want to separate, divorce? Why is it that you make a mistake? You know, you lose your job. Or your son breaks up with his girlfriend and they want to blow themselves up. Suicide. Why? Because all they can see is two mistakes. So, if you see the whole wall, you don't need to separate. Mistakes are okay when you see them in the context of all the other beautiful things going on in life. And I taught that story at a cancer group many years ago, still teach down there. A builder came up and reassured me that all builders make mistakes, all bricklayers make mistakes, but he let me into a secret in the building industry. Whenever a bricklayer or a builder makes a mistake like that, They tell their clients it's a feature. And they charge an extra $3,000 afterwards. And I thought that's a beautiful ending to that story, because mistakes are the features. It makes you lovable. It makes you real, human. And I think that's a beautiful end of that story. That's wisdom and the virtue to notice that life is kind and good if you don't try and be perfect. And the other story was the walk in the forest. Because there's many people with mental health issues. Not just mental health issues, but also physical health issues. People who are not as beautiful as Angelina Jolie, as strong and fit and handsome as Ajahn Brahm. But I used to be like that until I became a monk. But that's not the point. You go into a forest and look for the most beautiful tree, and you'll find the most beautiful tree, the one you can relate to most and like the most and keep going back to, is a tree which is bent, twisted and crooked and damaged. And I've used that to people with mental or physical health issues to tell them, look at yourself. You are like a tree in the forest. You belong. That's one of the first things about virtue and kindness, showing that people belong no matter what they look like, no matter what's happened to them in their life. Don't have this idea you're supposed to be perfect before you belong. Don't try and get rid of what other people think are your defects. They make you, give you features. And you find that the most damaged tree in the forest is the most beautiful one. So those people who are told that they're damaged goods, you belong and you are amongst the most beautiful trees in the forest. I turn it around. And that is an amazing just way of a right view together with kindness. Second factor of the path, I've only gone to 1.5, and so we've got another 15 minutes to do the rest. But is this wonderful, I know that many of you have heard this as right thought, and it's not right thought, it's right motivation, where you're coming from in life. This is Samasankapa for you Buddhists who know your stuff. Right motivation, where are you actually coming from? Because if you find that is from letting go, kindness and gentleness, the 3 right motivations. And check it out in the Pali. I know what I'm talking about. I'm also a scholar. I've got a brain, so I use it. So I'm not just, all fluff and jokes. So it is coming from the right place. If it's not coming from the right place, where is the ethics in Buddhism? And that actually answers many questions, such as things like euthanasia, abortion, same-sex marriage. You look at where you're coming from before you even decide the ethics. And I was mentioning this a little bit earlier, just in brief, on that radio show which we shared together, Dennis, about people were asking me for solutions of terrorism. There's many, many mean and nasty acts which people do. Why? So just like lying, you don't say it's wrong. Say, why do people do this? Why do people hurt one another? And one of the reasons is because they follow their head, not their heart. They don't actually look where they're coming from. They look actually what they want to achieve. Getting rid of the infidels, revenge, getting rid of the people who have hurt me. They're never actually thinking where that's originating from, the quality of their heart. And if you listen to this, rather than listen to the books, listen to the monks, the dogma, the traditions, everything else you've learned, brainwashed into you, you feel it, then you can't do anything which is really bad. You know where I got this from? I grew up sort of in the time of the Vietnam War, and during that time there was one atrocity. I remember this to this day. I remember all the details of My Lai massacre. Lieutenant Calley, who was ordered this large number of American soldiers to go into the village of My Lai and to kill every man, woman and child. That was the order. It was war. And I forget what TV company it was. They decided to do a follow-up 30 years after to find the results of those who participated in that atrocity. And I never saw it. It's just anecdote, but I'm sure you can discover this for yourselves. Nearly all of those soldiers who participated, followed the orders, had huge problems in their life. Addictions, could not have a good relationship with somebody, couldn't really hold a job, who were really traumatized and had the social, physical and mental scars of that trauma. But there's always the anomalies, the exceptions. It's the exceptions as a physicist I always find are the most interesting. And this was an African American soldier who refused, who said, no, I can't do this. Knowing he spent 3 years in a military prison in the US, which is really tough and cruel. But he was willing to do that. He was the one person stood out apparently who was at ease with his life, had no addictions, had a good relationship, was enjoying himself, was at peace with his life. And the interviewers asked him, how could you do that? How could you say no, understanding the consequences of what you were about to do? Jail for 3 years. And he said that he was not highly educated. He came from some ghetto in the poor part of the United States. He joined the military just to have some pathway to self-respect and a future. Was he religious? He said no, he didn't believe in religion. How could you do that? And I think it was probably because he wasn't educated, because he wasn't brainwashed by a religion, that he could follow his heart. He said, I just knew it. You just can't do that. I can't. It's from here. And I often say that that is where our moral compass must always be. Just please put aside all the dogma. Please put aside all the learning, all the rules, everything you've ever been taught. This is always far more accurate, generally speaking. The rules put you in the right area to look at, but you feel it in here. And so that was not just a silver bullet, but one of the things which we should be aware of if we want to overcome terrorism in this world. In a family, child molesting, sexual violence, domestic violence. How about listening carefully to our heart? We just can't do it then. We don't justify it with dogma and thoughts. So anyway, that is opening the door of your heart. Feel it. Stop thinking it. And this is what I get from the second part of the Eightfold Path, learning how to feel rather than to think, being in our heart, not in our head. And that means we do actually get to know what's right and what's wrong. Don't need much education for that. In fact, sometimes education stops us feeling this can't be right because the book says so. So anyway, from there we get amazing virtue. You know, right speech. How can you ever shout at someone or lie at them if they love you and you have this wonderful feeling in your heart? How can you do bad things to a person? It makes no sense. How can I even drink alcohol? No point to it when you feel your heart rather than do what other people tell you. So anyway, that becomes the virtue. And I've already gone through third, fourth, fifth part of the Eightfold Path. Yay! So 3 more to go in 6 minutes. So The next one is like right endeavour. I never like calling this effort, because effort is what kills people. Striving for something. What on earth are you striving for? Why are you working so hard? Where are you going? I get caught out from time to time. I was in office in my monastery over in Australia, and then someone said, "Hi Ajahn Brahm, how are you going?" And I said something which everyone else says, "I'm getting there." And then he said, "Where exactly are you getting to?" Uh-oh, he's caught me out. And I was honest. I said, "I'm just getting to the coffin, that's all I'm going. That's why I'm going to end up like this." So instead of getting somewhere, the right effort is learning how to be here instead of going somewhere. Where on earth are you trying to get to? There was a wonderful lady who explained this very well. I'm going to have to do my balancing act with the microphone. Yes, I've got it. No, I haven't. She said, "This is my problem in life," she said. "This is where I am." She put her hand down here. She said, "This is where I want to be, up here. I know this is where I need to be, and it's so hard getting myself up to where I need to be. I just can't do it." So the solution's obvious, madam. This is where you are, this is where you want to be. Instead of trying to push yourself up to where you want to be, why don't you lower where you want to be to where you are? Problem solved. Lower your expectations of politicians, of Donald Trump, of a marriage, of this lecture, of and then you'll be happy. Lower the expectations of yourself to be who you are, where you are. That is the factor of right endeavour. That which causes peace. When you ask from this world what it can't give you, you're asking for trouble. When you want something more, you can't enjoy what you already have. What do you want? Haven't you got enough? Why is it that people always want more, 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 more? They can't enjoy this moment. There's too many people in this world going somewhere. Never enough people actually being here. So just be here. There was a time when I got, again, being stupid Ajahn Brahm, where I was always so busy, and every day there's always something to do, problem to solve, someone to counsel. And I had visitors come into this place where I live and say, "Oh, your temple is so beautiful. It's so peaceful and tranquil, living a life of a monk in a monastery." And I said, "You must be crazy. What do you mean this is peaceful? This is my workplace. You've got to run a monastery. You've got to maintain the buildings, the gardens, clean the gutters. And if that's not enough, people keep sending you emails. When you next coming back to Halifax? And I've got to find solutions to that. And there's monks going crazy, and I've got to ask them about their meditation, and people come and visit, and they ask me to go to Malaysia, to go to KL next time, and oh, crikey, what do you mean this is peaceful?" And then I realised something wrong with me. Why is it you can come and visit this beautiful, tranquil monastery, you can see it, but I couldn't? So I decided a new practice of right effort and mindfulness and wisdom, to practice being a visitor. So every Monday morning, when I stay in the monastery where I'm supposed to be the boss, the abbot, the spiritual dictator, as they call me, so I decide to pretend, to role play, being a visitor rather than a boss. And it's so much more fun being a visitor. When I'm a visitor, someone calls, there's an important call from you, say, "Sorry, I'm not Ajahn Brahm today, I'm only a visitor. And the monks say, well, I've fallen in love with one of your nuns. I say, sorry, it's not my business. I'm a visitor, not an owner. And in fact, I've learned a new word for that. One of my friends on retreat, they say they had a son, 16 or 17 years of age, and the mother would always ask him and said, have you finished your room, cleaning your room yet? And he would reply with this word, Nanya. And then, have you done your homework? Nanya. And then, have you taken out the trash? Nanya. And she said, I've never heard this word before. What does it mean? And it's the modern word for none your business. So I like that word, so I use that in meditation now. Nanya. So, someone says, when are you going to finish the building? I reply, Nanya. When you're coming back to Halifax? Nanya. Did you like this talk? Nanya. So what I'm doing there is learning how to let go. Be a visitor, not an owner. So when I do that, I can appreciate the place where I live just like a visitor can. If you want to try this is right effort and mindfulness. When you go home this evening, or maybe you have a weekend, Monday or Saturday, I don't know when you have your weekends over here, but I'm jet lagged, so Monday becomes a weekend for me. So when you do have a weekend, time off, instead of looking at your house as another place of work and toil, I invite you maybe 2 hours a week to pretend to be a visitor, not an owner in the house in which you live. So if you see lots of dirty dishes in the kitchen, it's not your business. It's Nanya, I'm a visitor. If you see the carpet is filthy, there's cockroaches running all over it. Not my house, Nanya. I'm only a visitor. If the Lord needs mowing, when you go and visit someone else's house, and I'm staying in Arunika's and Raja's house today, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to vacuum the carpet for you. I'm not going to sweep the drive. I'm a visitor, not an owner. So it's a nice, peaceful place for me to stay when you don't own it. So having the perception of being a visitor, not an owner, allows you just to let things go. People in our modern world are so responsible. I want to reinvigorate society with the art of being irresponsible. Responsibly irresponsible. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3 hours a day. So, or a week anyway, at least a month, at least a year. Please give me a couple of days a year just to enjoy the place which you spend so much money to buy and to maintain. Even if it's imperfect, just like a tree in the forest. The most beautiful ones are the ones which are lived in. Don't have to be perfect. And anyway, one of my sayings is, never do today what you can put off until tomorrow because you might die tonight. You can't argue with that. So that's effort. We put too much effort in this world. We don't know how to let go. And just be. And enjoy the beauty of the life, the beauty of your home, when you just leave it alone. So then that's also part of mindfulness. Being aware is good enough. Your partner, good enough. Your children, good enough. Instead of keep pushing them. Do better. I was just so fed up. I was getting top marks at school. You can still do better. So you go, you know what it's like. You go to university. Get a degree. You can do better. Do a master's. You do a master's. You can do better. Get a PhD. But I learned what the word PhD means. Permanent head damage. I'll be careful in the university saying that, they won't invite me back again. PhD, permanent head damage. And it just goes on and on and on. Nobel Prize. You know that when I ever teach meditations, I really hate gongs and ringing gongs. You know why? It happened to me so many times. The teacher spent too long to ring the gong after the meditation. My legs were hurting, I was going crazy, I was just waiting and waiting for that gong to go. And so I started fantasizing, get all these ideas. Because that's what you do with the restless mind, training theoretical physics. I thought of getting a pea shooter or a slingshot, because the teacher had the gong way over there, but I could hit it. It went gong whenever I wanted it to go off. You ever thought of that? Have you ever thought of trying to get some... Forget hacking into computer systems. Expect if you can get a machine which hacks in to the red and green lights, so you can actually, whenever you get stuck and busy to go to work, you can actually and turn it green. Wouldn't that be cool? I shouldn't give you ideas. But anyway, I don't mind sort of being a bit rebellious because I'm leaving the country tomorrow before the police can get me. I always call my monastery in Australia my safe house, so I can say whatever I like. And where was I going with this? I better be careful because it's being recorded. And mindfulness awareness. You'd be able to see things. If you actually start to let go more and don't struggle, you become far more awake, aware. And the last factor of the Eightfold Path. And I've made this one of my missions as a monk teaching meditation. For goodness sake, do not call it right concentration. That again is just following other people blindly. It does not mean that it's stillness. We don't meditate to be concentrated. That's what I learned at school. Concentrate! And that just traumatized me. And we have these meditation camps. And some of them, they say it is concentration camps. With all the baggage that word actually connotates. It's not concentration camps. That's why when people keep telling concentration camps, like I said, your meditation center just in Halifax, goodness sake, don't call it a concentration camp, not even a retreat center. Call it Club Med, Halifax. Club Meditation, Halifax. It gives a different aspect to this. This is fun. And it's not about being concentrating, it's about being still. Now, I'm going to drink a bit first. Venerable, I need your help here. You can stay there. Are you an honest monk? Are you? Yeah, okay, very good. I knew that. I just wanted the audience to know this. I'm now going to hold this bottle of water perfectly still. Now, has it stopped moving yet, Venerable? You know why? Because I'm not paying attention, not being mindful. I'm now mindful. Has it stopped moving yet? Because I'm not concentrating. I now concentrate. I'm trying to concentrate. Has it stopped moving yet? You can concentrate all you like, being mindful as much as you like. This will never be still. You're smart people, you know biology. The muscles in my arm are always moving, metabolizing. There's no way I can hold it still. And I just get so frustrated if I try this. So you don't concentrate. You let go. You put it down. You stop grasping. You don't hold the past or the future or have any goals or aim. You let it go. Now, Venerable, honestly, actually it's still moving, I better stop moving myself. There must be an earthquake in Halifax that usually goes still very quickly. But is that moving now? That's pretty still. There's no way I could hold it that still. Yeah, that's pretty perfectly still now. Correct? Is it still? Being honest. Come on, loud so people can hear you. I could be a great ventriloquist. Yes, it's perfectly still, you know, sir, and I never move my lips. Yeah, that's actually still, honestly. That's the only way you can get it to be still. That's pretty good. So that is the eighth factor of the Eightfold Path. Stillness, caused by letting go. And what's that to do with happiness? It's something which, notice, personal experience, that the reason why people haven't got happiness is because they're tired, exhausted. The cause of so much mental health and also anger and physical health as well. Actually, when the BGF in Kuala Lumpur, some years ago, we had a youth camp for 15 to 25-year-olds. There's about 200, 300 youth there. 15 to 25-year-olds. And they gave them a questionnaire, and whoever asked this questionnaire, brilliant. What is the most troubling emotion you experience today? And they gave them, they could actually, had a list they could tick or make up their own answers. And the clear winner, the most troubling emotions, 15 to 25-year-olds, was tiredness. I thought, wow, how true that is and how obvious it should be. Your kids working so hard, trying to please their parents, their teachers, to achieve well in life, having the problems of going through puberty, finding partners, getting some self-respect, so many demands on kids. They are tired. And you know that because you haven't overcome that tiredness. Human beings in our modern world, in Halifax, throughout Canada, throughout US, Australia too, we are so exhausted. Tiredness. Cause a great many problems. So what actually tiredness is, we struggle so hard with life. So much so, we lose so much energy doing stuff, going somewhere. You know, if you walk too far without a rest, your body gets so weak and tired. But our brains, we don't realize this, how much we use our brains to exhaustion. And because of that, it has very little energy left for knowing, for mindfulness. When you stop doing stuff, stop trying to change something, stop curing it, stop going somewhere, let it be, put it down. And then you find, from stillness, the energy is not being wasted in doing and reacting. Instead, it is going into knowing. You literally wake up. Your awareness gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And you start seeing more beauty in this world. Energy and happiness are a side effect of powerful, strong mindfulness. And to tell you the story which you will never forget, it's one of my grossest stories, but so true. There was a time when I was teaching a meditation retreat. I was getting into deep meditation. Hi, welcome. Such amazing deep meditation that my mind was so energized. And I made this big mistake. Just like everybody else, I had to go to the restroom to do a number 2. My mistake was looking in the toilet bowl afterwards. My mindfulness was so incredibly strong that when I looked at the contents of that toilet bowl, I went, wow! Never in my life have I seen such a beautiful piece of shit. Now, don't laugh. Next time, you go and have a look. It's not one colour brown. It's not one shade of brown. There's so many different, 100 different shades of brown. And the way that it all was put together and interfaced with one another, it was like some Picasso masterpiece. Now, don't doubt. You haven't checked it out. See for yourself. Come and see. And then the way the little balls were all put together, that was reminding me of Rodin, the great sculptor, or maybe more Michelangelo. And then there's always a little bit of, what's it called, mucus on there, which made it glisten like a diamond in the water. Then next, when you're really aware and open your eyes to what you never imagined is possible, the aroma. Now forget about Chanel No. 5, which is fake, not real. This was deep. This was natural. This spoke of the earth itself. Not fake, not superficial, but the depth of the earth. Wow. And that's what I kept on saying. Wow. I don't know how long I was in that toilet cubicle. Wow. And all my life I'd never seen such beauty before. And this was honest. I did think and contemplate picking it out to show my friends. Well, you would. You want to share beauty. And it was only the fact, my training for years as a monk to renounce and let go. If I hadn't had that training, I would not have been able to actually to make that great sacrifice and push that little button on the top of the toilet thing. It was a tough thing to do. I think I'm still traumatized. I need some counseling about that. When I pressed the button, the most beautiful piece of shit in my life went out of my life forever. Now, most of that is absolutely true. Now, why do I tell that story? It's not just to give you something to remember. They always remember the gross stories. The dumb one, they never remember. But why do I tell you that? Because it reminded me of this this poem in William Blake, 16 to 1700 or something. To see a world in a grain of sand, a heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand, eternity in an hour. Beautiful little poem. To see a world in a grain of sand. Something you never imagined was possible. A heaven in a wild flower. Hold the most beautiful piece of shit in the world in your hand. Eternity in an hour. That's what mindfulness and stillness do. You see beauty where you never ever expected it. You're happy, joyful in the most simple things in life. That is why a good meditator, one who knows how to be still, has huge energy and huge happiness. For those of you who doubt me, you know this, Venerable, you just got your MA in Buddhist Studies, that it's called the Dhammacettiya Sutta, where King Pasenadi went to visit the Buddha in the famous Jeta Grove Monastery. And when the Buddha told this king, why do you keep liking to come here? What attracts you here? And he said, because in this monastery, this temple, all the monks are happy and smiling. And the Buddha said, that's what you can expect when the monks are meditating properly and getting insight. Happiness. This Eightfold Path is a way to be happy. Peaceful, free, joyful, energized, happy, because you're not wasting all your time bitching and complaining about life. See beauty anywhere. Anywhere. Thank you for listening. Okay, let's get some questions, comments, and complaints. Yeah, who's going to ask the first question? Washroom. Please don't do that there when somebody's waiting, otherwise you're there for half an hour, 2 hours. Okay, just to get the first question, I'm going to give another simile. This is from the, I think it's the Gunawardena Sutta, I think. Might get this wrong. But anyway, there was a gentleman came to see the Buddha and asked him about karma. In particular, why is it that some people are wealthy? They don't do much work. And other people, you have to work your butt off, work so long, and it's still hard to pay your bills. Why is that? Some people, that just wealth comes to them. They win the lottery and they don't do anything. So, the Buddha gave the example of some karma he did in a past life. Gave a really good answer, and it was such a good answer that, I always mention this, even mobile phones have karma. If a mobile phone comes off during a meditation retreat or during my talk, it's such bad karma for your soul phone. In its next life, it will be reborn as a parking meter, which is the lowest form of life for technology. But anyhow, the next question was also interesting. Why is it that some people are just beautiful while other people are just ugly? And there's no amount of sort of Botox or nose jobs or boob jobs or any other jobs can really help you. Why is it? And you may have noticed when I said this, why are some people ugly and some beautiful? You may have noticed I put my eyes on the floor. And the reason was the first time I told this story was actually in Singapore. When I mentioned the word ugly, I just happened, just by chance, looking at one woman, and did she complain? Why did you mention the word ugly when you were looking at me, Ajahn Brahm? So now when I mention the word ugly, I look at the floor. And even when I mention the word beautiful, I look at the floor, because you don't know what people might think. So they gave a wonderful answer to that. And so much so, they asked the next question, which is the most important one, why I'm saying this little anecdote. Why are some people intelligent and some people basically stupid? Why is it that, some people, you just go through life, passing this exam and that exam, you don't tend to do much work, and you still just become, professors, really intelligent people, monks. Well, some of your kids, even if you give them extra homework, get them tutors, they still don't pass. Why is that? What's the karma? And the Buddha said the karmic cause of stupidity in your next life is not asking questions in this life. Any questions? Yeah, I always get a question when I say that story, yes. Thank you, Professor, in your next life. The right to die. We're going to die anyway. We might as well get over and done with. That's what I think. Get it out of the way. No, with the right to die in particular, euthanasia. Okay. Euthanasia, even an abortion. Exactly. There's two types of euthanasia. There's voluntary euthanasia, and also euthanasia, which happens very often in most countries, where the nurse usually just gives you the extra morphine. And that happens so often. And the thing is that voluntary euthanasia is where a person, usually assisted voluntary euthanasia, I know this very well because the first person in modern countries who legally had assisted voluntary euthanasia was a Buddhist from Darwin. And because of that case, I never met him, but there was Mr. Dent, D-E-N-T. One of my other monks went to visit him and find out, why do you want to do this? And the reason why this man decided to take voluntary euthanasia assisted was that he had a degenerative disease, but which gave him absolutely no quality of life. But he could deal with that. He could be at peace with that. For him, he did not want his wife to be living 24/7, looking after him with no life of her own. Yes, there was respite care, but she would still come back afterwards. Her life was devoted to her husband, and he wanted to free her. That was his reason. Not personal, but compassionate for others. You can't argue with that. You may disagree with it, but that personal choice, there's nothing bad karma there. So he first took legally voluntary assisted euthanasia. And what's happening there? First of all, there are enough guidelines, there are enough safeguards to have either usually two doctors to say there's no possibility of a cure, there's no coercion there, a few psychologists to make sure that is making as far as we can make a free choice, which is not influenced by others, it is free. And actually the way it's done, at one of our conferences we invited the person who administered voluntary euthanasia to this man, Dr. Philip Nietzsche. He was a member of Exit International. How it's actually done, to get information before we judge. And actually saw just the equipment, intravenous drip into the arm, computer screen, where there were so many questions you had to answer, and so many times you could say, no, I do not want to do this. So many checks. You realize if you go forward, you're getting closer, and to the final little touch of the screen, if you touch the screen, the yes or no, then this, I forget what it was, will be into the drip, and you will die. And all the time there, always conscious, aware, and in Buddhism we say we are the owners of our karma. It's our personal responsibility. And what I don't like is when other people say, no, you shouldn't, or you should. Even my job as a spiritual leader is to give advice, never to give orders. It has to be your choice. And another thing which pushed me over the edge to see its use, most people, usually 80% in Australia, probably the same proportion, would want it to be allowed, and especially when you have been with somebody who is no purpose in life and suffering. Dementia is one of those reasons. My mother had dementia for 2 or 3 years. She didn't need voluntary euthanasia. She had such a positive mind when she was alive and cogent. So she was happy, even though she didn't remember who I was. I thought of all the people who visited her, I should have been a dead giveaway who I was, her son. There's not many people bald head wearing girls' clothes. That's what they used to call them, a dress, brown robes. But she couldn't remember me. But what I did notice was about a couple of people there who were in total fear, in terror every moment. And I could sort of empathize with that because I travel around a lot. Even like this morning, where as soon as I woke up, where the hell am I? Because I sleep in so many different beds just in 1 year, traveling around. Am I in a temple? Am I in Australia, America, Canada, KL? And there's a little bit of uncertainty when you can't recognize your surroundings, you don't recognize the people around you, you feel totally unsafe. And I can understand the terror some of these people were exhibiting because every moment they could not recognize where they were and who they were with. And that recognition of our surroundings and the people is so important to our feeling of well-being. And that's something which, no palliative care could take away. The fear. It was an emotional terror. And that's something I haven't seen anyone being able to take away. There has to be that opportunity. Compassion. But carefully taken. And even another piece of passion as a Buddhist leader, abortion. Why is it that men make all the decisions whether it's right or wrong? Honestly. Just the priests, the monks, the Archbishop of Canterbury, the Pope. The Pope has never been pregnant. So what the hell does he know about what's going on? So as a monk, you can listen, you get some degree of empathy. But the job of a monk like myself is to take away the fear. Because this is something which I learned from the Buddha's teachings. Before you make a decision, check 4 things. They call the 4 agati. To make sure you don't make a decision just out of desire, personal benefits. You don't make a decision out of ill will, especially what other people think of me. You don't make a decision out of stupidity. Get all the facts. What's going on? Is that little being growing in your womb? Is it viable? Can it be found a nice home? Can it be adopted? What can you do? Get as much information as you possibly can. Don't make a decision out of stupidity. But the most powerful addition to that was don't ever make a decision out of fear. And so many people make their decisions out of fear. Especially fear of rejection, fear of doing something evil, fear of going to hell. And I think anyone that says, if you have an abortion, you're going to go to hell. Whoever said that should go to hell. Because that's really cruel, very malicious. Trying to control people out of fear. Ethics doesn't come from fear, it comes out of kindness. So anyway, my job, and any other job of a person, you may be the mother, the father, the husband, the friend, the spiritual partner, your job is just to reassure that that decision would be the most difficult decision a woman ever has to make. And I really mean that. I can understand that much. The most difficult one, ever. And number 2, the job of someone who loves and cares for you is to almost like hold your hand before and hold your hand afterwards. I'll be there with you, no matter what you decide. I will always be your friend and care for you. I'll never reject you. It's a decision you have to make by yourself. No one can stop you or encourage you. But the most important thing is to mean whatever way you go, I will still be your friend. Which is so important. So many, I don't know how many women here have had abortions, but there'll be a large proportion of you have had an abortion. And so many women, you are made to feel guilty. And that is much worse than having the abortion. That's killing you and your happiness and well-being. The kid, we have such a thing called reincarnation. It's not the end of existence for that little being in your womb. They'll come back again. We always have another go. If you don't pass your exam today, you can take it again. It's not demeaning life. It's actually kindness and compassion is even more important. Life and death is not a life and death matter. I learned this from one of the inspirational coaches. He was the manager of the Liverpool soccer club, who went on record as saying, many people believe that soccer, trains out to hockey, that hockey is a matter of life and death. So important. He said, they're wrong. Hockey is more important than life and death. You ask any hockey aficionado. So anyway, that's my take on. Please, I said a lot about that because, I'm sensitive enough. So many women have come up and you see the psychological damage which lack of understanding and compassion give. That's something which I can do. Try and take that away. I don't know how successful I am, but more spiritual leaders need to actually to say, if they're men, we don't know. We can't understand, but we support. Whatever you do. Okay, anyway. Next question. The concept of non-self is is there nothing here? You can't say there's nothing, you can't say there's something. It's in between. It's called a process, not a thing. So, this is one of the problems, that if you think there is a soul, a being, forever, you're in trouble. I don't watch many movies, but every now and again somebody says, I did watch The Theory of Everything because my mate was in it. It was the life of a documentary of Stephen Hawking. But I also was told about Groundhog Day. Was it Canadian? Okay, great. Okay, but this was a guy who kept on living the same day again and again and again. Tried to get out of it, but just got so bored after a while. Even though he can get anything he wanted. People who go to heaven forever and ever and ever, that is torture. Imagine ambrosia, day after day after day after day after day. You get sick to the teeth of ambrosia. Harp music? How about some Elvis, some Jimi Hendrix, some rock, some hip hop? The same, after a while, doesn't satisfy you anymore. So just the whole idea, of the heaven realm being happy, it totally makes no sense. Eternity is a prison. There was another movie I saw as a kid. It was a Dracula movie, but not one of these Draculas just for trying to excite people or terrorize people. And it was a very beautiful premise. Dracula was supposed to be eternal. He could live forever, except if he was lured out into the sunlight, and then he would die. And it came to the point, after 400 years of existence, that Dracula had this angst about life. He'd been there, done that. There's nothing more. And in the end, he allowed himself to be drawn out. He suicided, basically, because he couldn't stand eternity any longer. Fascinating. An idea of a permanent self, forever and ever, if you really contemplate it and penetrate it with wisdom, is torture. The idea there's nothing there at all doesn't make sense. You can hear me, you can feel. So, third way, what the Buddha called in the Samyutta Nikaya another form of the middle way. You can't say there is, because things disappear and fade away. You can't say there's nothing, because it's an arising. Instead, there's this amazing thing called a process. Things arise and pass away, and they arise and pass away again. A process, not a permanent thing, not nothing at all. So, it's a third way between existence and non-existence. A process. Otherwise known, and I won't go into detail here, as dependent origination, cause and effect. So you get your head around that, and then that is science. There are no such things as atoms, as protons and electrons, as quarks. These are only temporary things which come and go in this world. Now, I'm going to blind you with science. And I know what I'm talking about. I've got cred. Many people try and use science and they don't know the hell what they're talking about in spirituality. And I can claim I do. It's one of the fundamental laws of science. The conservation of energy, mass energy. You cannot create energy, you cannot destroy it. You can change into mass. That's nuclear fusion and fission. Changing energy into mass, mass into energy. But the sum total of mass energy must remain constant. So where did this universe come from? There is such a thing, and I think this is high school physics, you can understand this, called potential energy. A thing, a heavy object in a gravitational field. Think Ajahn Brahm. I have gravitas. So, a heavy object in a gravitational field, it will take energy to lift me up and send me into outer space. A lot of energy. So, this mass has a negative component. Any massive object, any object with mass in the gravitational field has a negative energy component as well as a positive energy component. And actually gravitation is one of the most fundamental forces, which actually holds galaxies, solar systems together. So, I proposed this when I was doing a lecture on science and religion. I love, going to places where you're not supposed to go before. One of my favorite lectures, most popular, was Buddhism, sex and money. The number of times that was downloaded, you wouldn't believe. What people are interested in. But anyhow, on this one, with doing a lecture on Buddhism and science, or spirituality and science, I was suggesting this to our local professor of physics at University of West Australia, David Blair. And I told him, said, what would happen? Sort of I mentioned the word negative energy, which is not sort of emotional, this is a physical stuff. It's not dark energy, this is negative energy, any massive object in a gravitational field. What if that amount, sum total of negative energy, was exactly the same as a positive energy? So imagine that every massive object in this universe could come together in one point, totally cancelling itself out. A zero-sum universe. No energy left, no mass left, because it all perfectly cancels. And he turned around, looked at me and smiled and said, Ajahn Brahm, you are so up to date. Omega equals 1. And that's how he suggested it. I don't know exactly what omega means, but it means the balance between the negative energies and the positive energies, mass energies in this universe. It's an amazing little concept. So all the energy in this universe, if we could all come together in one point, it would totally cancel out and the universe would disappear. Not in the flash of light, not in the bang. Gone. Poof. Disappear. Same as your mind. If it all comes together in one point, your mind is a zero-sum too. It will vanish. Poof. Where does it go? There was nothing here to begin with. And there's nothing there afterwards. Poof. Just like this universe. Just a flash. Just a raindrop in a puddle. What was Robbie Burns' great poem? Pleasures are like poppies spread. You pluck the flower, the bloom is shed. Or like the snowfall in the river, white for a moment and gone forever. Now I can't do that in a Scottish accent. Any sort of, please, Scots people here, please excuse me. When you say it in a Scottish accent, it sounds so melodic, but you can't understand it. At least I can't anyway. So that's the answer. Isn't that wonderful? I find that's beautiful. Yeah, next one. Excellent, yes. Exactly. The answer is, and it's a well-rehearsed answer, please do not let go if you're on the back of a motorcycle through heavy traffic. There is a time for letting go, and there is a time for caring for life and doing something about it. If you don't know the difference, you'll get in big trouble. This, one of those lovely stories in one of my books, I did learn something as a school teacher. This is probably the most wonderful thing I learned from a fellow school teacher who told me an experience when he was in the British Army during the Second World War. Great psychology. He volunteered, everyone had to volunteer during the Second World War, and he was shipped over to Burma and fighting Japanese in the jungles. He had no animosity to the Japanese no animosity to him, but he had to do it. And so he just had no choice. And so he was on patrol in the jungle with about 6 other British troops, and they had a scout. The scout came back and told them they'd wandered into a huge number of Japanese troops, completely surrounded, heavily outnumbered. This was it. This was the end. And imagine, this is war. A big war. And they was totally surrounded. It just happened by bad luck. So I've heard this from other soldiers. No one ever knows who's going to be the hero. Even the small guys, they just rise to the occasion and become the heroes. And these big, massive Arnie Schwarzenegger people, they just break down. But this guy decided to be the hero. Let's shoot our way out. Who knows? We may make it, but even if we all die, we take down many of the enemy with us. It's a Bruce Willis school of psychology. Sorry, but school of something or other, military academy, whatever. But anyway, that's what most people want to do. But the captain of this group of soldiers say, no, we will not try and fight our way out. Instead, I order all of you to sit down and have a cup of tea. It was the British Army, after all. But this was orders at war, and you had to keep them, had to follow them. And this man, who was the head of English in the school I taught at, thought this was the craziest, stupidest thing he'd ever done in his whole life. How can you think of having a cup of tea when you're in the jungles of Burma, thousands of miles from home, about to be killed? But he had to do that. And the time it took to start drinking their tea, the scout came back and said, put everything away quickly. The enemy has moved. I found a way out. And that's what they did. They all crawled through that gap in the encircling forces, which is why he could tell me the tale. He said he owed his life to the wisdom of that captain. Not once, but many times. He did have untreatable cancer once. He's going to die. There's no way out. So what did he do? Relax, have cups of tea. I don't think it was the antioxidants. It was the fact of relaxing. Can't do anything, let go. Now the problem in life is there is a time to do something. But a lot of time when there's nothing to do, we don't know how to relax and have a cup of tea and let go. Which means we act when there's nothing we can achieve. We just waste our energy, stress ourselves, and often injure ourselves as well. So we all know how to strive and act, do stuff. But very few people know how to be still. When the enemy is all around you and you're about to die, we don't know how to let things be. We struggle and strive when there's nothing to achieve. This is why we die. When there's nothing to do, do nothing. Something to do, give it everything you've got, care. But we don't know how to do the former. We're very good at doing the latter, striving, struggling. We're very untrained to be able to let things be and relax. Which is one of the reasons why we get into so many troubles. Life changes, things changes. How many people even in stock market? Stock market goes down, people panic, sell everything, and lose all their savings. And I know this, and I'm a monk. Just wise people, stock market goes down, just relax, it will change. It does change. So just don't panic. When there's nothing to do, do it. Nothing to do, let go. Simple. Okay. So that piece of financial advice, it's amazing what you get from this place. Another question? Have you got one?
Joyce has one.
Yeah. Ha 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 ha. Okay, Joyce. Where's Joyce? Oh, yeah. I like being deviant. I gave a talk at the Gay and Lesbian pre-Mardi Gras breakfast. And at my talk I said, and you think you're deviant? Gay, lesbian, transgenders. There's one people you always discriminate against. Celibates. And you've read, people who champion the rights of people, to express their sexuality in so many different ways. They always leave off celibates. So I want celibate rights. People think if you're celibate, you have no sex at all, you must be weird. But it's not the case. Celibacy is a life choice, and it rocks. So anyway, sorry about that. Anyway, so I'm a deviant celibate. I'm a celibate monk. Yes. But it's... come on, it's not your heart speaking. That's another head speaking. Why don't you like a person? It's weird, but I've never seen a person I don't like. Weird. And I've been in prisons, talking to people who are in prison for murdering, for child abuse, which is so hard to get your head around that, how a human being could abuse this small little being who has so much trust and hurts them for such a long time. Rapists who take advantage. So many mean people. But in all those time I've seen people who've been in jail for those things, I've never ever, not once, seen a criminal. I've never ever seen a rapist, a paedophile, a murderer, or a thief. I've never seen that. I've seen people who've murdered. I've seen a person who's abused kids, but never a paedophile. If you understand what I mean, you understand the wrong view, which perpetuates these terrible, terrible acts. There was 2 children, supermarket checkout, parallel lanes. One child dropped a jar of honey. Almost exactly the same time, another child dropped a carton of milk. They both splashed on the floor, almost simultaneously, making a huge mess. The mum of the kid who dropped the honey said, "You stupid kid." The one who dropped the milk said, "That was the stupid thing you did." A totally different result. At first, a stupid kid, just dropping a jar of honey doesn't make you stupid. It's a stupid thing you did, yeah, to drop the milk, but you're not a stupid person. And I think you can relate to that, because we've all had that. I made a mistake, you stupid monk. I'm not a stupid monk, I did a stupid thing. You're not a paedophile. You've done a paedophile act. You're much bigger than that. And again, one of the places I got that from, I mentioned it very briefly in the conference, never actually, in Toronto, never actually elaborated on it. It was a study in educational psychology done in the UK many years ago. In I think it was a grammar school, they had 2 classes of 1 year, I think the equivalent of maybe year 10 or year 9, I think year 9 or year 8. It wasn't that important a year. Every year is important, but not crucial like the O levels and A levels years or something. And a couple of educational psychologists got permission to actually do this experiment. It was only them and the principal were in on what was happening. The end of the year, they gave them exam. End of school exam, where they would stream them for the next year. However, they never published the results. Only the principal and the 2 psychologists knew what was going on. The child who came top was put in the same class as the one who came 4th and 5th, 8th and 9th, 12th and 13th, 16th and 17th. The kids who came 2nd and 3rd were in the same class as ones who came 6th and 7th, 10th and 11th. In other words, they split the classes up as evenly as possible based on the results of that year's exam. The principal selected teachers who she thought were equal ability, classrooms with equal facilities. Everything was as equal as possible except for one thing. One of those classes they call Class A and the other one Class B. And so some of those kids went back to their homes and told them, I'm in Class A next year. Well done, son. I never thought you could make this. Wow, you've never been doing any homework, getting all these letters from the principal, but you've done it. Well done. And some of the kids, you in Class B? No more going out to sport for you. Extra tuition, you stay at home. Because they really thought that Class A meant they were the better kids and Class B were the lower half. And even the teachers, they taught the Class A kids, expecting them to be better, expecting more out of them. And they even believed in themselves that they were Class A kids. And at the end of the year, 12 months later, they gave another exam. And they found the results were chilling. The children who were put in Class A did so much better than those who were in Class B. Statistically, it was as if they had been chosen as the top half from the year before. When I first heard of that, training to be a teacher, it was chilling. Literally, half of those kids have been called Class A children, and so they became Class A kids. And worse, the other half were called Class B, and they became Class B. You created the Class B kids. 12 months of conditioning, believing they were Class B, they were lesser intelligence, that they were hopeless, being reinforced by the teachers, and it worked. So remember, if you call your kids stupid, you're making them stupid. If you call your husband unreliable, he'll become unreliable. If you call a person a murderer, when they're released from jail, they'll murder again. That's who they are, that's who they become. So I never ever call a person a schizophrenic. They're a person who has episodes of schizophrenia. You're not ADD person. You have episodes of attention deficit. You're much bigger than that. That is so powerful. So, use some wisdom. There's a person, it's just about 6 kilometers down the road from our monastery, there's a prison. We go and teach there. And there's one man who's read the book, the story about the 2 bad bricks in the wall. And apparently I was laughing my head off when apparently the other prisoner said he's going around the prison, having read my book and understood it. It's only 2 bad bricks. It's only 2 murders. It's only 2 murders. What about all the other people I didn't murder? Now you may laugh there, but that fellow, once he's finished his sentence, will not murder again. His identification being reinforced again and again by the prison cells, the bars and the windows, even his uniform. He's gone past that identification. He's not a murderer. He's a person, a huge being who's done these 2 terrible things. It's not diminishing what he's done, but it's including all the other stuff in his life. If you keep treating people as a paedophile, they'll repeat it. There are no such things as terrorists. There's people who've done terrorist things. Okay, another nice little story for you. True story. Here's, because this is personal, I was there at the time. During the Vietnam War, after Phnom Penh, Saigon, and what's the other place? In Laos, Vientiane. They fell to the communists within days. Where Ajahn Chah's monastery, where I lived, from there to Hanoi was half the distance as it was to Bangkok. And we had an evacuation plan. The governments, the embassies in Bangkok had all our names, an evacuation plan, because they all expected the communists to invade northeast Thailand, which was ethnically Laos. It belonged to Laos rather than Thailand. So anyway, we were on alert in case they crossed the border. But because I was fluent in Thai at the time, and Laotian, and because many of those generals actually visited Ajahn Chah, these are top generals, and asked for advice, I got the lowdown. Those generals were not afraid of troops crossing, because the communists in Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia had exhausted all their resources, in that war. They didn't have the strength to invade another country. That was it. Maybe years later. But what the generals in Thailand were really concerned about was the ethnic Thais who had rebelled against the government, the communists who were Thai people. And they were very, very strong, highly organized. Many of them university graduates, people who had reacted against a tragedy in Thammasat University, one of the main Thai universities, seeing their friends thrown on to bonfires alive. And no one of the monks who saw that with his own eyes. And were so against the regime, were in the jungles fighting an insurgency, getting all the weapons they wanted from across the border, and supplies from the local villagers who felt neglected by the government. I know that because I was in that area at the time. I had to ask the military which mountain I should go to meditate on. Otherwise, the communists had captured some monks, tortured and killed them. And as a white monk, they would have thought I was CIA straight away. I would have been dead meat. So, I'd ask the soldiers, which mountain could I go in? They said, that one over there, that's safe. The communists, there's lots of them over in that mountain. You know where they are? Oh yeah, we know where they all are. Why don't you attack them? It's not our policy. They had far greater amount of arms, helicopter gunships, support of the US military. There was a non-violent strategy. We're not going to attack them. If we do, they're like the Hydra's head in Greek mythology. If we just kill one of those communist insurgents, their brothers, their friends will join up for revenge. So it was non-violence. There was also amnesty, forgiveness. Anytime any one of those soldiers wanted to give up their arms and go back to university or their village, there would be no debriefing, there would be no torture or consequences, 100% forgiveness. Just go back. Let go. You're free anytime you want to leave. A clear exit strategy with no fear. And they meant it, they did that. And lastly, we always say the root causes. They're actually looking at those root causes. I remember meeting one of these soldiers who was at they had these places watched, and they knew who the insurgents were, who the communists were. And he said he would meet the communists going down into the village for some rice. He wouldn't stop them, he showed them his new watch. Or they knew what they used to call the ghetto blasters. The big. He said, this is why we're not fighting. The government is actually looking after us. We're getting prosperity. We're getting irrigation systems, electricity, clinics. We're being looked after. So the villagers gave up their support for the communists. They had no reason. And little by little, those communist insurgents gave themselves up. and some entrepreneurial Thai businessman would take people and tours of the caves where the communists were. But the best thing was when the leaders gave themselves up. Surely you can't have amnesty for them. These were the ones who actually killed monks and soldiers and so many other people. But for once, a country which is supposed to be Buddhist acted like Buddhists. They were given amnesty just like everybody else, the leaders. And not just that, they had talents, organizational, inspirational. They were given top positions in the civil service. Use your talents for your country, not against it. And I told that story once in Sydney in front of the Consul General of the Thai Embassy, or the Thai Consulate in Sydney. He stood up and he said, "That's not the full story." He said, "I know most of what you said was absolutely true. The full story is 3 of those communist insurgents, the leaders, are now serving as ministers in the Thai government. Not to be put across on a wall and shot dead, not locked up in prison forever, but to be part of the system." And I thought it's a marvelous Buddhist way. Yeah, you may get upset and angry at them. Why? Why not being in them inside? When I was expelled from the monastery where I spent so many years for giving ordination to bhikkhunis, giving equity to nuns, one of the Mahayana nuns sent me this wonderful poem. "They drew a circle which shut me out. Heretic, troublemaker, someone to flout. But love and wisdom had the wit to win. I drew a bigger circle which included them in." A bigger circle which includes your enemies in. That's beautiful. To me, that's an answer. Loving kindness and wisdom, seeing things in a different way. Enemies are important to you. Okay, anyway, you might not agree with me, but that's the wonderful thing about this, you don't have to. So, thank you all for listening. Okay. Just one last thing about letting go. We appreciate letting go so much that we do have a letting go box over there. So if you want to let go of some of those really unimportant pieces of paper like $100 notes or 5-cent coins, donation box over there, which makes my monks and nuns, I like, almost like being a beggar. You know, seeing these people on the streets, a wife and 2 children to support. I have got 25 monks and 11 nuns to support. Oh. So whatever help you can do, great. We do sadhu, we give it everything we've got. Really make it really full power sadhu. So please follow me. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. No, not enough. Try again. You're not going to be able to leave until you really put some effort into this. Come on, once more. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. It's also followed by 3 he's. Okay, you can go now. See you next time. All the best.